powerful. I woke up, there was this woman, but she was made entirely out of light. She was bright white light,
Wow.
sitting there, leaning back on the bed like that with her hand. And she turned to me because I sat up. She turned to me with a smile on her face and she just put her finger just near my lips and pushed me right back and until I fell asleep. And the next morning when I woke up, there was a burn mark. The handprint was on the
What?
blanket.
Welcome to Strange Mysterious World Season 4, Episode 2. We have a very interesting South African guest on today, a renowned astrologer, Rod Suskin. Right here from SA. Very cool. Apparently he's quite heavily booked up, very hard to get hold of him. So very
Yeah,
honored
well,
to have him on our show. Very honored.
yeah. I mean, if you want to get an appointment with him, you have to. He says he's booked up for a year in advance. Like I wanted to have a session with him, and he was like, "Sorry, I'm booked up for a whole like a year. You book now, you would only get it in a year. Like I'll see you in a year." Anyway, here
Okay.
he is. How's it, Rod?
Hey, William.
Evening, Rod. How are
Hey,
you?
Hi, good and you?
Good, thank you,
good
man.
man.
Nice to
Good to
meet
have you
you.
here.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
Yeah. So, Rod, we gave a bit of a introduction, but maybe you could give a better one. I know you also teach astrology.
Yeah,
Is that right? So
yeah.
you've got like an academy and
Yeah, I teach a 3-year course that I've been teaching for about 30 years, I suppose.
But how
wow.
did you get into it? I mean, it's like a, sure, astrology is quite a thing, man. So what made you get into that field?
It is. So it was since I was a child, really. I was a little bit of an unusual child. Children are fascinated by unusual things, but I was especially fascinated by astrology. I had lots of weird experiences as a child, out of my body experiences, those kind of things. So I was very open to that kind of stuff. And I've found a photograph of me from when I'm 10 years old wearing an astrological t-shirt. So obviously I was that into
Wow.
it at that time.
That's
And
amazing.
I do remember that when I started high school, which is the age of 13, I would get teachers' birth data and then dribble information to my fellow students about them. How much I knew at that age. I didn't know how to draw a chart, but I can't imagine what I must have said at that
But wait,
age.
wait a second. There's no YouTube or anything in those days. So what? How did you
Yeah.
even like know how to draw a chart? I mean, what did you just because you
So
reincarnated and you were astrologer in your last
no,
life?
so what
What?
actually happened was when I was 11 years old, I went on holiday with my uncle and aunt, and we bumped into a friend of theirs, an old dude who was sitting drawing astrological charts. I was really into astrology, so I knew what those were. So I said to him, tell me more. So how do I do that? And he gave me the name of a book to get when I came back home. And that book showed you how to draw astrological charts. It had tables and logarithms and all sorts of things you had to do. But so just followed instructions. I learned how to do it. So
Okay.
started that early.
I just
That's
want to travel
amazing.
back a little bit quickly. You mentioned out of body experiences. So what happened? And what age? What age was that?
So I shared I've got two brothers. So I shared a room with one of my brothers. And I remember so I must have been in my very, very early teens, 13, 14 years old. This is what I remember from that age, maybe a bit younger. I found myself on the ceiling, bouncing against the ceiling, staring down at my brother who was in the other bed.
Wow.
And I realized that I was dead, basically. So, so I got a terrible shock and I landed up in this like black void. It really was this ultra three-dimensional void and
Wow.
back in my body. And so my eldest brother had a book about astral travel. He wasn't madly into that. He was just into science fiction. Somehow he ended up with that book. So he was the one who explained to me what was going on. He was 6 years older than me, so he was already, you know, 18 or 19 years old. He explained to me what that was. So then I discovered I could do it at will. So I used to go and float up against the ceiling and watch my brother, now that I knew I wasn't dead, watch my brother and then like report back. Not that there was anything. He would turn over, he would say something in his sleep or something like that. And that went on spontaneously well through my 20s.
Okay, so hold,
Um,
stop there. Stop, stop, stop. So I've been trying to do astral projection for I can't tell you how many years. I fall
Yeah, me
asleep way
too.
too quickly. I promise you, within 30 seconds, when I put my head down, I'm gone. So what was your technique? How did you do it?
well, in the years since, I've learned a very good technique.
Yeah.
Because I read a million books on astral projection, and then almost all of them are rubbish.
Mm.
Because I knew that it's getting out of your body is often a very unpleasant experience.
Mm.
And none of the books say that. They all sound like you're going to France for free and we'll look at the Louvre and all of it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
It's a weird experience getting out of your body, and it's a very confusing experience once you're out of your body. It feels like the feeling of getting out of your body is like a vibration that feels like you're being electrocuted but with no pain. So it's a weird vibration where you lose control of your physical body. So the best technique I've ever found is a technique where so you don't do it when you're going down for bed because then you are going to fall asleep. So you do it Saturday afternoon. You lie down and you visualize a point in space about a meter away from you or two. And once you've got that, you pull it closer and closer until it's about 3 feet um, in front of you. That's a half a meter, say. 3 feet is a meter. So it's now from 2 meters to 1 meter. When you've got it there, you rotate it through 90 degrees to above your head, and you visualize it's above your head. And then you pull it into your head. And
You know
after
what,
doing that,
Rod? It's so funny
all this,
because Rod, there's this technique of the Robert Monroe in one of his. I think it's the
that's the
first
one I'm
one.
talking about.
But no, but his is it's different. It's like he says you got to like think of 2 points merging, like a triangle. But as you said, like far ahead of you, like if you're lying down
Uh-huh.
looking up at the ceiling, and then bringing it closer, closer to you, then bringing it above your head. But then he says you got to shoot it out, like as far as you can out into the.
So
So you say you bring it into your head.
yeah, well, I did. So maybe, see, I learned it from Robert Monroe, but I might have misunderstood him because I brought it into my head.
Okay, well maybe I just read it. Maybe you're supposed to bring it into your head.
So let's say this. What Robert Monroe is the only person I've ever found who's the real thing. So
Yes.
his techniques work. His descriptions are the real thing. And as you can tell from reading him, it's weird stuff. It's not like going on a free holiday to a place you haven't been to.
Yeah,
Weird
it's
stuff
quite scary
happens in
sometimes.
an alternate dimension of some kind, yeah. So, and I think he does, he does later get into, if you read his later books, into trying to get a greater purpose out of doing all of that.
Yes, I read
Uh,
some of those later ones, but then it got so weird. He was
yeah,
like, "You guys,
it's got too
what's
weird.
it? Like locale 3 and locale 4 and
Yeah,
locale up to locale 200." But then it's just all these weird. It's almost like
yeah,
it sounded more like it was lucid dreaming than an actual, because he would be in this like weirdest
exactly.
places, like
Yeah, it
they
got
were
a
not
bit
even
weird for
real.
me. I don't know. A lot of it got a bit too weird for me because I thought, well, I mean, we can't draw the line between what the brain is producing on its own, and it's hard to say what is all that stuff when it gets that weird.
Oh, is that just from your own experiences or just from reading that book?
No, from reading him, and there was a
Oh, yeah,
point
yeah.
at which I couldn't read him any longer
I know,
because I
me
thought,
too. I was just
yeah,
like, this is like fantastical now. It's like a
yeah,
science
exactly,
fiction novel or something.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So do you still
So,
do
so
that?
I don't really do that anymore.
Okay.
Don't
Okay.
really.
Did you ever get like scared that you like an entity was going to get attached to you or something when you were out of your body?
A little, because it kind of happened to a friend of mine. So during my 20s, I had a friend. So are you guys in Cape Town?
I'm
Yeah,
in
in Cape
Durban.
Town. Oh, I'm in Cape Town. He's in Durban. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm in town. She was in Sea Point, and we used to experiment trying to meet each other in the astral world, which we did once or twice. But
Wow.
she found it very easy to come out of her body. But she would have the experience that she came out of her body and something attached itself to her back.
Move.
And I remember her describing it as some kind of entity, and she pulled on it, and it became like rubber, and she just pulled and pulled and pulled until eventually she had the whole entity, then she squashed it up into the shape of a box and threw it out the window,
Oh,
which is a very
she did
natural
that.
thing to do. Yeah. So it's like the imagination and the world engage directly. And she,
Yes.
because I had also taught her, like she would get out of her body, and they were all. She had these African violets on her table, and she said all the African violets would like come alive and start like chattering to her, and they'd say "shut up," and they'd turn back into ordinary African violets. And so she had to
Ah,
keep on switching off the imaginary stuff to get back to what
see.
she knew really was in her room, but she was out of her body. So the imagination
Ah,
becomes real, and there is also a real, and that's what's very confusing.
Okay.
wow. Fascinating, man. But anyway,
Yeah.
back to
Yeah, shit, we deviated a little bit. It was a good deviation. I like it.
so what I want to ask about astrology is that, I mean, how did they come up with the whole process? Like, how was it figured out?
The
So
Greeks.
it's before the Greeks. The Greeks kind of stole it from the Babylonians, who were their enemies. So the Babylonians, for before they started writing things down, from as early probably as 2 or 3,000 BC, they started recording what they saw in the sky. And I think what happened is that they used the stars, and by naming the stars and by creating the constellations was a way of recording their histories, their mythologies, their beliefs, their psychology. They recorded everything in the stars with the names and stories they attached to the stars. Because the thing about the stars is that they don't change. They look exactly to us like they look to the Babylonians. Whereas if you write something on clay or stone or paper or magnetic disc or SSD, can you imagine? It's now really imaginary. How long is it going to last? Whereas the stars are literally forever. So this was a way of preserving their stories and passing them on to future generations. So they encoded the human experience gradually into these stories. We all share the human experience. And then gradually, as they observed the planets, the seven things they could see that moved in the sky, they were really attaching cyclical experiences to those stories. Then we know from about 770 BC, they started writing down everything in the sky, including the clouds, let alone the stars, and what happened in their empire that day. They kept a record for 700 years. It's the longest longitudinal study done by human beings, and it's hardly recognized by science because it was astrology. But
Wow.
three
I'd love
complete
to see
copies,
the weather
they
patterns in
exist.
those days to see if there
Yeah,
was
no,
like
it's
a
yeah, that would be really interesting. What has changed about that? But the great thing
yeah.
is that text still exists. So we know for sure that's what they did. It's not a story. And
Mm.
so I think what they were doing is they were discovering the cyclical nature of human behavior because every single living thing on this planet, plants and animals, go through unmistakable cycles. We can predict when they're going to flower, we can predict when they're going to go on heat if they're animals. We know all these things about them because of their previous, and yet we pretend that that doesn't happen to us. We like to believe we're unique and we free
But
will,
that's also
all of that.
when I tell people, I say like you don't actually understand how you are so um, influenced by like the sun or like the moon. And I say to them like you don't.
Exactly.
I say the woman's menstrual cycle is like because of the moon. That's how it's dictated. And they're like, no, it's
Yeah,
not because it's a different time. So that if it was by the moon, they would all be on the same day. And I'm like, but it's exactly a lunar cycle. So like it has to.
it
You
is.
are being influenced by the moon. That's how you're having
I think it's.
your
I mean, it is because we know, but I don't. I think, and what they're saying it would all be on the same day. So it's not that the moon is directly influencing them like it influences the ocean, but
Mm.
it's that all creatures, as we evolved on this planet, were naturally created or evolved in sympathy with all the cycles around us, the sun, the moon, the Earth's own cycles, the seasonal cycles. Everything plays a part in that. So as I say, you see it everywhere else in nature. So it must be in us as well. And what the Babylonians had done is that they had, they were tracking everything. So say, for example, they noticed that every time they went to war with a neighboring tribe, the red planet was very bright in the east. And so they thought that the red planet, Mars, was causing them to go to war, which of course it can't be doing. It is a piece of rock very, very far away. It can't possibly be causing anything. But probably what they had discovered, so Mars will be very bright in the east every 2 years. So they had unwittingly discovered, say, that the cycle of aggression in human beings, which happens to be a 2 year cycle. If it had been a 3 year cycle, they would have noticed something else and blamed it on that. But they found the thing that they could time it by. So then we can
Yes,
use
okay.
Mars to predict aggression. It's not causing aggression. It's just synchronized to naturally. It's
Oh,
like saying,
okay.
I can say when the big hand is on the 12 and the little hand is on the 1 and the sun is shining, you're going to be hungry. The hands of the clock are not causing you to be hungry. They're just synchronized with the sun's cycle and with the
Mm.
human circadian cycle, which makes you hungry at lunchtime. And
But
I think that's what they've discovered with the planets, the
okay,
Babylonians.
but then what about those solar flares? Like, I'm just going back to the thing about how actual celestial things could affect you. Like, they've
Yeah.
noticed a pattern when the sun goes through heavy solar flares in history. They've recorded them, and they've noticed that huge changes in like upheaval and revolution, like like the French Revolution took part during a big solar flare, and like
Yeah.
like World War II was, so every time there's a huge solar flare, then there's like, it almost like puts us into the states of aggression, and huge things and wars start happening then. I don't know if that's a cycle that the solar flares happen when or is it affecting us, like, because your theory sounds like maybe it's just a pattern that the solar flares happen at the same time as we go into that aggressive
Well,
mode where we start fighting.
solar flares themselves are in a cyclical pattern because everything in nature is. So the sun has got that 11-year cycle where the solar flares become more powerful every 11 years. So everything is working on such a cycle. So all I'm saying is that we don't, we can't be sure of cause effect. All we can be
Mm.
sure is that the same thing that drives the sun, drives the earth, drives everything on the earth. Whether that's God, nature, the universe, evolution, we'll never know what made it all so. But it's like there's the same driving force behind it all, which is perhaps why it looks like things are influencing us. But it's not. It's just that we all come from the same source. It's like all the different cells in the body have the same DNA, but they do different things. We are the same on a bigger scale. But things like the solar flares affecting us, that's what interested the Babylonians. That's why they were recording the weather as well. They noticed that everything seems to be related to us.
Yeah.
I'm saying them. I mean, solar flares they do have effect because they've got a strong magnetic effect. So they may be doing something, but I think the secret behind all of it is that there are cycles in everything, and includes our behavior. And the Babylonians had gradually stumbled onto a way of measuring it. So astrology is not perfect because our behavior is very complex, but astrology is complex enough to be a very close way to describe it and why it can make predictions because we are way more predictable than we'd like to believe. We're not so unique. So it makes predictions as well. Then it was the Greeks who came along. It was actually Plato who suggested that he said that the Babylonians are just reading signs in the sky. It must surely only have a use if you can use it to make predictions. So it needs to be made into a science mathematically. And he's the kind of motivation of why the Greeks, by the 300s BC, had turned Babylonian astrology into a science, which is a much more mathematical, organized, classical way of measuring those cycles.
So Rod, now when you're reading in the magazines, and I remember in the U magazine many years ago, they used to have these astrology things that will say I'm Capricorn, so it'll say, okay, so Capricorn, when Capricorn or Jupiter is in Capricorn, this day is going to happen with that, because I don't know,
Yeah.
everybody was assuming that the influence of the planets, gravitational pulls, whatever it is, was affecting the human body. So you're saying that that's not the case. It's just
Yeah.
kind of like a
It's
right.
it's just a correlation. It's not a cause. It's just a correlation, and it's a powerful one because it's been tracked over literally thousands of years. So it's got a high level of accuracy because it's been tracked and refined for so long. Those kind of things that used to appear in magazines and newspapers when they existed. I think newspapers still exist, and you get plenty of that on the internet. That sun sign astrology was actually only invented about 100 years ago. Although astrologers have always used the sun, they had never used it quite in that way, where it kind of sums up the whole personality. I'm a Capricorn. That didn't exist before the 1930s, that concept. But the fact remains that it does describe us fairly well. So the sun sign, most people will identify with at least 50% of what their sun sign says, which is ridiculous. It should be 0%, because it should be random, but it isn't. There's enough of a cluster around. Like most Capricorns are serious, skeptical, naturally responsible since childhood, very adult-like since childhood. All of those things are very different to a person who's very spontaneous and rash and runs in where angels fear to tread, which a Capricorn would never do. But an Aries would do those things I've just said. And this grouping of people in that way, as I say, is only 100 years old. I think the reason why it applies so well in modern people is because in pre-Enlightenment times, everything was around religion and the ordered universe and all of those things before the Age of Enlightenment and the new science developed. Once that developed and kind of the fall of religion, the fall of God, it all becomes about us. We see ourselves as the creators of everything. The world is uh, perceived and controlled by ourselves as human beings. Well, the sun in astrology represents the ego, the identity. So it's become egocentric. So now we describe ourselves instead of describing God. And it seems to make sense because it reflects our self. So the thing about astrology is that it's also a product of culture. It's the way that human beings relate to the sky and the way that they describe themselves in relation to a bigger universe. So not only tracking cycles, it incorporates a lot of our cultures and our histories at any particular time. So we're at a time where we live in a very human-centered universe, not a God-centered one anymore. So it's very much around identity. Identity is a big thing. It never existed a couple of 100 years ago. The concept wasn't even there because you were born with an identity. Now we claim identity, we define it, we identify with, and identity, all of that stuff is the sun in astrology. So it's natural that in modern times, the sun seems to describe us so well.
So
Oh,
what is it
so
that you teach then, right?
So I teach the classical method. So I teach how you draw charts. Well, we do them with computers these days, but how to read them. So, there's a lot in a chart. I'm looking around to see if I can hold one up to the camera, and I haven't printed one for years. So I see them on the screen all the time. Um, but it's a map of the sky drawn astrologically in a circle. And so teaching students how to read that, how astrology says how to read that, how to basically put it all together. So the planets and how they fall in the sky, the different ways that we read the sky. There's the rapid movements of the sky from east to west, the slow movements of the zodiac from west to east. Putting all of those things together creates this unique map at any given moment. And that is interpreted. That's what I teach.
oh, so it's a 3-year course. So I
Yeah.
mean, and is it like how many days a week or how many hours?
So it's just once a week for 2 hours. Students find it very intense and moving too fast for them. So it's like
Yeah.
it could be longer than three, or should be every day. I always think, a university degree is 3 years. It would fit into a university degree very easily, much more comfortably.
But that's actually what fascinating because when I spoke to you, you said you're busy for like a year because you're so good that you can't get an appointment with you for a year in
I don't know if it
advance.
means I'm good. It just means I'm popular.
Oh no, well, that means you must be good. I mean, and you don't even if you don't advertise and you're so busy, then it means you're good. But I was because I saw the rates. I spoke to another student of yours to get a session with her, and it was like I think it was like 1,300 rand, and I was like, geez, this is so expensive. Like, and I was thinking, well, I'll go to my GP. He charged me 500 Rand for like half an hour session or like to see, and he's got like a degree of like, I don't know, 10 years or something, and spent all this money on whatever, the housing and and I was thinking, but then how can it be so expensive for but now it makes a bit more sense. If it was a 3-year thing, that makes it sense. Yeah.
3-year course, it does cost them money to study, of course, as well. And in modern language, it's better compared with a therapist than with a GP. So a therapist will cost you 1,300 a week.
Yes, yeah.
So this is a one-off. My rates are currently high because I'm trying to semi-retire. So
just gotta get rid of them.
Yeah, one of my kids said to me, just start charging much more. And so I started doing them, they won't go away.
I did that for a job as well with my side because I'm a freelance cinematographer, and I didn't want this job, so I just put this. I doubled my rate, and they were like, they accepted, and I was like, oh gosh, I've got to do it. And
so
then
am I putting this into the podcast, or I'm going to cut this out?
No, you can put this in the podcast. But yeah, none of my colleagues are listening, especially that. But then, Rod, I just wanted to ask, like, because it seems so mathematical, and I have had a previous one done, and it seemed like it was like half mathematical, half like they were looking at charts, and then the other half seemed like he was just intuitively giving me like a psychic reading. So, I mean, how much is it? Is there any of that mixed or?
Well, kind of. So strictly speaking, I mean, astrology back in those Greek times was called a branch of mathematics. It was considered a branch of mathematics. And at heart, it's essentially much more mathematical than anything else. But we do make predictions, so you make predictions using math, but then to decide what that ultimately means, what it's going to manifest as, requires intuition. For me, is too mushy and vague thing. So I prefer to think intuition means the ability to gestalt everything together from experience and knowledge. It's not a psychic thing. I'm quite skeptical about psychic anything, I have to tell you. So especially maybe as an astrologer, where it comes from maths, the wavelengths in the universe, it's like, okay, well, show me one before I believe it. But the math is like, one of the clever things about how astrology can make predictions is because of how we can use mathematics. So in mathematics, you can use equations to equate one thing with another. In astrology, therefore, we use mathematics to equate one unit of time with another unit of time, like a day to represent a year, because they're both based on a solar cycle. And then you can extrapolate a day to a year and start making predictions years into the future. And astrology, based on the idea of cycles, those predictions generally work. I mean, I have investigated all the other stuff and the psychic stuff and all of that. Astrology is way more accurate much more often. It's never perfectly accurate, but it's pretty good at it because it's using a kind of a scientific system. That then, having said all of that, there is this element of the gestalt, the intuition, that says in order to realize what that's saying to you, you have to somehow gestalt it all together in your head and realize that's what that means. But there's some things that are very obvious in astrology that you don't even need anything except the basic astrological knowledge that you learned. So, like, your business is going to end, or you're going to move home, or you're going to get married, or those kind of things are really easy to see in astrology.
Oh, wow.
You don't even need much knowledge or experience to see them.
But so I read Sadhguru's book Karma, and the way he described karma to me was very different to my understanding of karma. It was more like a pattern that you're in. Like, so it sounds like almost like what you're describing, like with your life cycle. It's not like you do something bad and you get bad, and you do something good and you get good. He was just talking about it like a pattern, like what you were talking about with astrology.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
But if you become like enlightened, or if you do like so much meditation, will you be able to break out of that pattern? Or like, I mean, have you done a reading for someone and then they like it's totally off because like they're so in tune with their, I don't know, like they're enlightened in a way, and they can just change whatever they want to change.
Yeah, I mean, I've never met someone who's that enlightened. Well, I have one guru, but I never did his chart. Um, there was a strange situation in India when I was studying astrology in India as well, and I was staying in an ashram, and the guru in charge of the ashram kept on nagging me to do his chart. And when he finally pinned me down, because I was terrified, but he finally did manage to pin me down. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have that exact problem because he's a guru and none of this is going to work. And his chart just went on and on. All I could see was sex and relationships all over his chart, and I didn't know what to say. I was
Oh,
so
but
confused.
it
So I
sounds like
said a
a
little bit and a little bit, and then I was like, and eventually he said to me, "Isn't there anything about my relationships?" I said, "Okay, you asked for it." And then I told him, and turned out he was having this huge affair with the woman in the ashram, and this is what the chart was all about.
oh
And he was
yeah,
so
dude.
pleased that I finally opened up and revealed. So I don't know how, enlightened people are still human, but yes. So
Yeah.
in theory, a person who is enlightened or who has achieved nirvana or something like that does break out of the karmic pattern that astrology describes.
Okay.
Okay. Because like yeah, because the things that he said in that chart, or I was just thinking, well, maybe if I meditate enough, I'll just get past that, or it won't happen again,
Well,
or
yeah.
like
Well, that's what, Bhagavad Gita says if you meditate enough, you will. And and that's the whole purpose. But meditation isn't just meditation. Meditation is the point of meditation is to stop the perturbations of the mind. That's its purpose. So the mind swings between desire and attachment all the time. And that disturbs us and makes us uncomfortable and restless and never satisfied and miserable. If we learn to still the mind and not care about desires and attachments, then we raise up towards enlightenment. So that means not caring about the outcomes of things at all. Not caring if it fails or it succeeds makes no difference. If you get the job or not makes absolutely no difference to you. Being calm mind in the face of everything. So that's the purpose of
crazy.
meditation, is to teach you that. On
Yeah.
its own, it's not magic, but its effects on the mind should
But that'll
hopefully.
break you out of your cycle though, because you won't be chasing that thing or going this way, or
Exactly.
be thinking because your those
Exactly.
patterns are your mind.
You're not
How your
responding to those karmic impulses anymore.
Geez, I mean, that sounds amazing. I wish I could just go to the doctor or some surgery and they just go into your brain and just pull out that thing where you don't have
They
to care
can.
anymore.
It's called a lobotomy.
Yeah. Even that might not be enough. That little monkey that lives in there. The best, the most amazing commercial I ever saw, you must know it. I think it might be Chicken Licken.
This was the Nando's one of the monkey on his back.
Monkey on its back. It is so brilliant because it's way beyond chicken, that advert. It's
Yes,
the
yes.
whole story of the mind, It's like the minute we're satisfied, it starts wanting more. We think we're satisfied, it's all good, and then it
Yeah,
just
he just
grows and
wants
grows and
more.
grows even more.
It's funny. I just worked with that guy, that actor, on another job recently, and yeah, he's quite a character. That
Oh,
chicken licking guy.
yeah.
Awesome.
So we didn't go. We cut off your childhood there. So you got into. Geez, it sounds like you've done a lot of things. You've even been to India in an ashram. So you've been around the spiritual block.
I have certainly been around the spiritual block. Because it was with me since I was a child, it's like came also naturally. Because things like, I saw an angel when I was a kid. I've never forgotten, it's like it was yesterday. A very, very powerful thing. And I came from a family that was not at all like that. They were very scientific, very down to earth, not religious, any of those things. And yet there was me. And where did I come from? I remember telling my mother about the angel because I woke up in the night and she was sitting on the edge of my bed.
Wow, it's
And
incredible.
it was this powerful. I woke up, there was this woman, but she was made entirely out of light. She was bright white light,
Wow.
sitting there, leaning back on the bed like that. with her hand, and she turned to me because I sat up. She turned to me with a smile on her face, and she just put her finger just near my lips and pushed me right back and until I fell asleep. And the next morning when I woke up, there was a burn mark. The handprint was on the
What?
blanket. And I
Oh my
rushed
God.
to tell my mother, and she said, "Oh, I burnt it with the iron." And I thought, even as a kid, I thought, like, you know, do you think I don't know there was no burn mark when I went to sleep?
Yeah,
Because my
yeah.
mother was also one of those kind of fastidious people. If there was a burn mark, the blanket would be gone. She would never have allowed us to use it.
Yeah.
So, so I
Jeez.
always had that, and I always knew it's just me. They don't believe, but it doesn't matter. Also, when I was 11 years old, I started asking for tarot cards, and neither me nor them knew where I got this from. And then I was walking in a mall with my mother, and there was a pack of tarot cards in the window of a gift shop that was out of its box. It wasn't marked as tarot cards. I was 9, so I was 9 years old. And I said, "Those are tarot cards. I want them."
Wow.
And my mother said, "Well, you can't have them." But we did have a rule in our family that if you paid for something with your own pocket money, they weren't allowed to block you. So the
So you
tarot
get
cards
to
were,
porno.
yeah,
Just like,
well, there was no porno in those days, lucky for them. um, so the tarot cards were 14 Rand 95. That shows how long ago this was.
wow, I
And
just
there
bought a
was
deck now. It was like 600 Rand.
exactly.
And with
And
the
there was
book,
no
if you get the
tax.
book, it's 800 Rand with it.
Right. So there was no tax in those days. 14 Rand 95. The book was 6 Rand something. So I went home and I broke open my money box, and there was 14 Rand 95 in it.
What?
And I remember it clearly because my grandmother always said, "You've got to leave 5 cents in your money box. You can't take out all the money, otherwise it'll always be empty." So I remember having this crisis of should I ask my parents for 5 cents? And I decided, no, I can't do that. I'll just use the whole 14 Rand 95. So I bought the tarot cards. I spent 14 Rand 95. I didn't have money for a book, but somehow I knew that what you're supposed to do with tarot cards is sleep with them under your pillow every night, and then you'll gradually learn how to read them. So I did
Yeah.
that for
Yeah.
2 years, and
Yeah.
after
Correct. I
two
think it's
years,
one card per night, if I remember.
right. So
Yeah.
there's 78 cards. So I was little, took a while, but I do remember that 2 years later I started reading tarot cards.
Wow. Okay. Do you still do the tarot card thing, or did you find
I
it?
do. Yeah, no,
You,
because so firstly because it's been with me since I was so little, like astrology. And then also, so when I was 19, I became a Sangoma.
oh wow. Did you have a calling sickness?
Well, I'm not exactly. I'm not like everyone else.
Okay.
So sometimes when it happens in little children, so usually if it happens with little children, the parents will try and stop it and delay it. So they'll do a sacrifice or something like that to try and ask the ancestors for it to come later. Children don't get quite the same kind of calling sickness that adults do. They just become very naughty usually and out of control, as opposed to sick and mad and all of those things that
Or
adults do.
AD, like now you're just ADHD. It's
Right,
like he's
exactly.
just little
But with,
sangomas running around.
but with me, what happened was this is how they explained it to me when they found me, the Sangomas, which is when I was 19. They knew. So what happened was when I was 19, I was at second year varsity at Wits, and this is 1982, we had this kind of renegade professor. He was an Afrikaans dude, but he wanted us to see Sangomas because he said that's how psychology is done in Africa. So he arranged all these Sangomas to come to the campus. He set up a
Wow.
room in the social sciences building as it had rockeries and plants and these 5 Sangomas, and
Yeah,
we
but
all had
that's
to go to the room.
open-minded in those days because you'd think like the
He
Christians
was
would go
wild.
off the chart
Yeah,
angry, like saying it's
and
like,
Christians, I suppose it was, but more a race thing. It's like, well, it was Wits, so
oh
it
yeah,
was
on
like
the race
he was
thing as well.
Afrikaans.
Jeez,
So
like
the race thing, Christian, but he had tenure. They couldn't stop him doing anything, and so
lovely.
we had to go and see these sangomas. So I walked in and we put 5 Rand under the mat, and then they threw the bones. So they threw the bones. So there was one guy. He threw the bones, and he said he looked a little surprised. He looked at me, and he's told me a few things, all of which were true, including your father is sick in hospital. I said, no, he isn't. He said, no, your father is sick in hospital. I said, he isn't. I just saw him this morning before I came to university. I did find out when I went home that he had taken ill and was in hospital after I'd left for varsity.
Oh,
But they told me other things which I knew to be true. And then he said to me, and this is a very strange bone. It was a green stone that had fallen a certain way. And he said, this means that you're growing medicine in your garden. So I said, oh, because I grew herbs. Because I just thought, since I was
does it?
15, I grew herbs in the garden because I thought it was amazing that plants are medicine. When I found that out
Oh
as a kid.
wow,
So
see,
my
that's
mother
cool.
thought I was growing weed, but I wasn't.
I know
It
this is what I
was,
was about to say. Like
yeah,
it was a
yeah,
dacha.
yeah, no, I didn't have access, but she thought it was. But anyway, so he
Wow.
says to me, "You're growing medicine in your garden." So I said, "Yes." So he said, "Oh," and so then the other Sangoma sitting at the back of the room pricked up their ears, and then they all started talking, and I kept on hearing the word Sangoma, Sangoma come up, and eventually they're all sitting in front of me, all five of them,
Wow.
and they were in gear. They had horns and beads and everything.
Jeez, there must be
And,
something.
and I was quite intimidated. And, and he said, so we know that you're a Sangoma. So I said, no, I'm not. He said, you read bones, don't you?
Oh,
I
you read the
said,
cat cards.
well, he said you read bones. So I said, no. He said, but you do read bones. I said, I read cards. He said, those are your European bones.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
this, I had told them nothing. They got all of this from reading my bones.
Wow,
So he said,
that's awesome.
you will be here next week and you will bring the herbs from your garden. So
So
I
you
said,
guys are gonna
what?
make it.
He said, you have to do a Sangoma and you have to start wearing the beads and become a Sangoma. So I said, naively and stupidly, I said, I won't drink the blood of a goat randomly. And he just completely
And
ignored
then
me.
he's like, that's racist.
You know, he just ignored that. It was just so stupid. He didn't even go there. And he said, and be here at 3 o'clock. And I said, I've got no money. And he said, and bring your medicine with you. They just ignored everything I said. So I just couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. So I got the hell out of there and bumped straight into the professor. So he said, what happened? What happened? So I told him, he said, you will be there next week. So I was. I went back the following
Nice.
week. And unusually, so they put the beads of a graduate onto me, not of a twaza.
Okay,
And he
wow.
said, your ancestors had been teaching you since you were a small child. So I said, that's correct. Because also, I had started remembering dreams of when I was very small, preschool, where there was this man who used to come in my dreams and take me to a riverbank and play cards with me. And these cards had colored geometric shapes on them. And I always remembered that dream until I told my mother and described the man, and she said, that's an ancestor of yours. He was a rabbi. So the
Amazing.
Sangoma said, I've been trained since I was a child. I've now just got to be fixed. So then after that, I used to go to Soweto most weekends. This was white people weren't allowed in Soweto. It was me and PJ Powell were the only people of white people who were ever in Soweto. And 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 PJ because where these people lived was right next to Mfolo Park in Soweto, where she often used to play. But so and on Sundays we'd go into the park and there's millions of people and one white person. And my joke was if the cops need to look for me, they just need to fly over and they'll spot the one white person in the whole of Soweto.
Jeez, that's a
So yeah, so
amazing
I was
story. And then what happened? So you got initiated, or what happened?
well, so they did that kind of semi half-baked version. Then I moved to Cape Town immediately after all of that and met also Sangomas here. And I started dancing with them and started more learning. So although they initiated and graduated me, I ended up learning the Xhosa songs and ways of dancing because then that's where I would go to ceremonies the whole time. And then finally, I met the guy who would become my husband. He was a white Pondo Sangoma, Chris Reed, and as the minute I met his teacher knew straight away all about me, and he said, "I'll finish you." So
Oh,
he
wow.
did the ceremonies that hadn't been done for me.
So that's so interesting because they say you were broken. So what did they have to fix? What did they have? What was the ceremony about that made you? What was it
So
about?
they say that when it happens in a small child and he responds like I did, you're not broken. You're carrying on directly something from your ancestors. So you brought it direct because the children don't resist. So the reason why people get sick is also because they resist. So they become broken and that's how they get fixed. But if the child doesn't resist and is allowed to respond, which they usually aren't, then you don't have the sickness.
Okay. So then, how did they open up a channel that was more direct for you, or what was the whole ceremony about?
It was still about all of that. It was just all the stuff of the ceremony, including not exactly drinking goat's blood, but close, because they wipe the blood and the bile across your mouth. So it's close to drinking it. Um, but yeah, so it was the whole ceremony and the ritual and the whole heightened experience of those rituals, because I've been in a million ceremonies since then. It does transport you into a whole other thing where you feel like you are directly in contact with the spirit world. You feel it there.
Oh, okay.
So it just gave me that greater sense of that. Although as a Sangoma, I always identified most with the medicine more than with the spirit channeling stuff.
And how's the medicine going for you? Is that are you like? Because I mean, the sangomas I'm spoken to, they say they go out at night time and they collect the herbs, but it's like they're getting told from the ancestors, okay, take this, take this. This is good for this. Is I mean, is that
Yeah.
your same experience as yours,
It's
or?
not mine. That's how the Sangomas generally do it. But being a white boy from an academic background, I really knew too much. So I know the Latin names and I know the medicinal properties and all of that. So that's what drives me. But so I would much more intentionally. Obviously, a lot of the African medicines, a lot of them are also European plants actually. But I would generally come from knowledge with those. But here in Cape Town, the medicines are very weak. The soil is very bad. I've got a homestead in Ponderland, and that's where I bring all the medicines from. But not so much in my semi-retirement anymore.
Geez, quite a man of many talents. They do the tarot, you do the
All these little
astrology,
things.
and the medicine.
Yeah, yeah. So I used to make a lot of medicines from plants and all of that. I used to grow them and make them and all of that. But I actually don't do that anymore. So I still have a lot of medicine here. I'm looking at this whole cupboard on my right as we speak. But um, so I've got a lot of children, which are my Sangoma children. So everyone we train becomes a child by African law. So I've got lots of them because over the years, I was with my husband for 22 years. He died a few years ago.
Oh, sorry, man.
Over those years, we trained like 20 people. So those are my kids. They're adults now. They always were adults, but now they're fully fledged adults. But we still do a lot of stuff together. They collect medicines. They make them here at my place. So it's almost like now I'm the old gogo who can sit and watch the kids make the medicine while they serve me.
Okay, great, man.
Yeah.
Jeez, what an interesting life, man.
When I,
And your
when I speak
parents were
about the
always
life,
were like, your parents were just fine with all of this. They're just like,
I think that one of the advantages was that I was the third child. So, they hover over the first one kind of thing. But by the third child, and also Lee, I'm a Capricorn. So, like most Capricorns, ever since I was young, it was very clear that I was responsible and together. So they didn't really have to worry too much about me.
even though
So
you were the craziest one.
even though I was the craziest one, I was always responsible, and I loved school. I never missed school. I did all of those things, so they were fine with it. I did well enough, I guess. I was an average student at school. So, and somehow, yeah, I mean, it's odd, but somehow, I guess, they let me. Well, because I had a balance. So my father was a pharmacist, and I was crazy about chemistry. Mostly, it's more magical side and making fireworks. But because I used to make fireworks as a kid, I don't know how they let me do that. But that's how responsible I was. My father used to get me the chemicals to make the fireworks.
So is that very Capricornish?
The kind of being responsible and trustworthy is very Capricornish.
Yeah.
Okay, but blowing up stuff is
That's
like your
Aries.
other side.
That's my other side. You know, in those days, you used to get little plastic toys in cereal boxes
Yes.
that you used to put together. That's what I used to blow up.
Oh, okay.
And were your parents very religious, or I mean,
No,
did you say that
not
your
at all.
ancestor was a rabbi? I mean,
Yeah, so technically, I came from an Orthodox Jewish family, but they didn't especially practice it. You know, it was like once a year kind of religion. So, because my father was a scientist and my mother came from an atheist family. So, for them, the Judaism was tradition and habit, but nothing too serious at all.
Christmas. Christmas is the only time you go to
Like-
church.
Yeah, just like Christians and Christmas. It was the same kind of vibe.
geez, so the tarot card thing is so interesting because everyone thinks it's like a satanistic thing, or because they don't understand it or whatever. But the guy that wrote the what's it, the Rider deck? What is his name? Wona
Yeah.
Rider. That the famous
Yeah.
deck. I mean, he was a Christian mystic.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
like part of like the whole mysticism is like if you
Yes.
meditate on those symbols on those cards, you
Yeah.
get profound like wisdom and
There's so much Christian symbolism in them as well. But you know what happened with Christianity is that there were all these competing paths all the time. And so like how the Catholics became dominant was by destroying the other ones, kind of thing. And those kind of things that happened. So, because clearly, if you look at the medieval period, you know, astrology was seen as part acceptable in Christianity, for example, then. And tarot cards, which primarily grow out of that medieval period, were very much of that world. They weren't against it. But it's later, when you get after the 1700s, maybe reaction to the Enlightenment, I don't know enough, where things really get clamped down. Unless you end up with the prudish Victorians. Everything starts getting clamped down, everything becomes a no. So I think the ideas that it's anti-Christian and Satanist, all of that, are relatively recent and not, they don't go back with the history of tarot.
yeah.
It was Saint Augustine who was against astrology, having practiced it himself, and he's like from the 3rd or 4th century. But by medieval times, you know, it's acceptable because it describes the world as this ordered, meaningful thing, created, centered around human beings, all of that, which is what religion describes it as.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
But yeah, Rob, I'd love to come and do the course. Are you still doing it, or are you retiring before I start?
I'm
Is
still
there any
doing
space?
it.
I have to wait a year before I can get in the course.
Well, the course starts at the beginning of every year, so
Okay.
So you've got 4 months.
so
5 months.
yeah.
I'm scared to ask the price because I know the price of just one sitting is it's like seeing a therapist.
Yeah, I'm trying to calm down the readings, but not the students. So the course,
Okay. That's cool.
I think the first year for the whole year is 12,000 rand.
Okay. That's
Which is
good.
not, but people charge that for a weekend workshop, you know. So
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
Yeah. No, that's a great price. That's amazing, actually.
like that.
It's like
Yeah.
1,000 rand a year, a month.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I always want it to be accessible, you know. So that's the thing.
Great. So great. So I'll see you next year.
Yeah, so it's taught online on Zoom.
Okay, cool.
So you can go to my website and sign up.
Okay, awesome. And then
Better sign up now, 'cause I know you're gonna
what's the
forget.
website? What's the website? So everybody can hear.
rodsuskin.com. rodsuskin.com.
Okay. Not Rob, guys. Rod.
Yes.
Rod Suskin with
Yes, William. Yes.
And do you do tarot lessons? Because I bought a pack like recently. I'm so like,
I've actually got my pack, yeah.
and I've been trying to do the YouTube videos, and I'm like meditating on them like every night, but I don't want to. That's so funny. I've got like such a draw to it. Like I want to do it every night, but there's something that's also blocking me. Like I'm like, don't do it every night because I don't know what it is, but it's weird.
Yeah. I mean, I don't teach tarot, but I do know a lot of people who have successfully learned from YouTube.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's a way to go. But it's just, it's about the habit and the discipline. And so, like Lee said, if you do a card every night, it's all you need to do. So read about that one card, think about it,
Sleep
maybe
on
put
it.
it under the pillow and sleep on it.
Sleep on it, and
Try,
it's exactly
try
like
get it.
what was that? The Sleeping Prophet.
Casey.
Yeah,
Eddie
Edgar
Casey,
Casey. Yeah, he
yeah.
slept on his books, and he knew them the next day.
Amazing. That's such a cool superpower.
Yeah.
But Rod, yeah, thanks, man. So I've got to take my daughter to dinner now.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, that was very nice chatting to you, Rod.
But geez, what a wonderful story, Rod, and fascinating,
Thank you.
man.
You
Thank you
too.
so much. Really loved having you on, and
It was a pleasure.
also it's
Really.
so funny because even some of our listeners, because I've seen you before on the internet googling, and I've seen you and what's it when I was trying to get that other, but then there was a person I knew that was also one of the things that I'm one of the what do you call it, the groups that I'm on. So I went with him, and then some of our listeners are like, get Rod on this show, get Rod on the show. And then I was like, yes, I know Rod. I've seen his website and everything. So I'm glad to have you here, man. And I'm sure
Well,
our
pleasure.
listeners will also be very happy. So thank you.
Well, good. I mean, sorry for the randomness of all my stories.
No, but it was
it was
great. I mean,
awesome.
it's
It was good.
so interesting.
As long as you can do something with all of that. It's cool.
Yes, no, of course. Oh, it was lovely.
Great. Well, it was very nice meeting you too. There's one thing I wanted to say, I was thinking about, I'm going to quickly say, that you
Yeah, yeah.
might want to splice in. Because I said what the Babylonians said astrology was as they were recording it, and the Greeks turned it into science. And ultimately, the Greek idea is that that consciousness as light descends from the infinite to Earth, and the planets are the lenses that as they move the light down to Earth. So your unique configuration of planets is the unique translation of light into consciousness for you.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
what
wow,
the Greeks
okay.
believe.
And that's what the whole hermeticism thing is, as above, so below.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So I thought
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
quickly give you that in case you wanted to squeeze it in.
No,
awesome.
that's
definitely put it
amazing.
in. Yeah, 100.
Yeah, great.
Oh, it's really interesting, yeah. Because it's always like that whole as above, so below, so like always like it'd be like, okay, well, how does this like? What do they mean?
Yeah.
And it says like they say as below, so above, and I'm thinking like, what are the gods or chaos and like fighting and like on the edge of World War III, and that's what it's manifesting. Like it's like I don't know.
There's a lot of different meanings. It's not
But
just the one.
Yeah.
but astrology makes the best sense, the most sense, as a
It does.
above, so
It
below,
does. What the Indians say in one of the Upanishads, talking about the sun and how by the movement of the sun, you can discover the inner sun. But the wise man knows is that by the movement of the inner sun, the outer sun moves. So we are the source. We are the same as God in the Indian view. And that as above, so below means no, it doesn't mean that the gods are necessarily fighting and all of that. It's everything. It's the entire human experience, both ways.
100%.
Fascinating, man. Jeez, very wise man, Rod. I really want to get a session with you, but geez, I've got to wait a year.
No, you got 5 months, so you can actually go now and go on.
No,
to
but
the
I mean, like,
website
if I
and go
wanna-
book for
I wanna-
next year.
No, I
Go
mean
book
the
for
course
January.
is next year, but I want to have a
A reading.
reading. It's going to take 12 months.
If you make an appointment and then drop me a line, I'll put you on the waiting list.
Okay, cool. If someone gets sick or something,
Yeah, and
or
people
goes on
cancel
holiday,
last
let me
minute
not be
because so much
negative.
time has gone by.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, I didn't even remember making this appointment. Oh, I don't need it."
Okay. Okay, cool. Great.
You're on.
See if my stars
Cool.
align.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
Cool.
And that's where that saying comes from. Where my stars
that's
align. It's from
exactly where it
astrology.
comes from. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay. Awesome, Rod.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Rod.
Okay,
man.
guys. Thanks so much.
Cheers,
Yeah.
everyone.
See
Enjoy
you
your
next
weekend.
time. You
Cheers.
too.
Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Cool, man. So that was an awesome. Jeez, what interesting stories, eh? Jeez. And that angel on the bed. I mean, that's so interesting.
Yeah,
Everything.
very
The
interesting.
Sangoma story. I loved it.
I enjoyed the I must say, but I've always been fascinated by out of body experience, astral projection. That's kind of probably my
Yeah, I
favorite, one of
know.
my
I
favorite things to
also,
talk about. But yeah, that was
I know. I
awesome.
also wanted to get into more of that, but I just thought, geez, then we're going to speak like an hour on astral projection, and we've called him on yet for astrology.
Strategy, yeah.
And
Awesome.
but yeah, then there was a lot I wanted to ask as well. But anyway,
Anyway, cool, man. Anyway, guys and
yeah,
girls,
dude.
from around, thank you everybody for listening again. Please, join us next week again, and we will chat to you guys soon. Well, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Lee.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Cheers.
bro.